Hello everyone, I'm back for another Tokens and Heft board game review. Well, maybe not quite a board game, but a tabletop game for sure. Today, I'm taking a look at Quarriors and a few of the expansions that I've got. Quarriors is they call it a dice building game. It's more like, so it's kind of like a deck building game, only instead of cards, you're getting dice. Each turn you draw a certain number of dice, roll them, attack, buy new creatures, continue. Now, the original Quarriors came in this lovely tin, which is a replica of the Quake Dragon die that's actually one of the creatures in the game. And they don't sell it in this thing anymore. So I'm happy I picked that up early on. Now, if you pick it up now, Quarriors will come in a box similar to this. I think it's actually even similar kind of colors to this. This is the Quarriors Quarmageddon box. I also have the expansion Quest of the Gladiator. That's not Gladiator, that's Gladiator with a Q, because the Quarriors universe cannot get enough of these Qs. Now, while it sucks you can't get the tin anymore, it's okay because storage in the tin wasn't really all that great. You had a thing for your cards and some of the little other pieces, and then just a big space where I'm keeping all the bags for all the dice. But this is where all the dice were contained, and that was kind of it. So organization was okay, but not that bad. But once they came out and started doing expansions of this size, we got these lovely boxes, which you can't see at the moment, but can't quite tell. Can fit a whole bunch of your dice. Each of these little sections here is exactly wide enough to hit for 5 dice, because the dice come in sets of 5. So, starting with the expansions, they made the storage a lot better, which you are about to see. Took the instruction book out so that wasn't laying on top. But look at all that. How great is that? A bunch of them are missing now because they're out for the demo, but you've got this great, colorful collection of dice. There's so many dice by this point that I have to start stacking things on the upper tray, which has the same angled sides and will easily store stuff. And underneath I just have all the extra crap, like the bags you'll need and such. So, how do we play Quarriors? Let me adjust this for a second. Also, I run into the stupid tripod, because why not? Get in a little tighter on this. Hold on. There's a chance. There we go. That's a little bit better. Basic setup for Quarriors. First, what you need to do is take out the glory tracker. It's just your scoreboard. The goal of the game being to achieve the correct amount of victory points. The first person who hits the right amount of victory points for that many players wins. As we can see, 12 points for a 4-player game, 15 points for a 3-player game, and 20 points for a 2-player game. 20 points might seem like a lot, especially coming from the 12 there. 2-player games escalate quickly. Third or fourth round, you're pulling out tons of great guys, and also there's not a lot of other people to attack you. Fewer opponents equals more scoring, which you'll see in a moment. Another thing I want to point out, because this has screwed up some of us, we've played this a lot and we still forget it and screw up from time to time. It's snakes. Goes from 5 to 6, 11. It does not just go left to right every time. So bear that in mind. It's still tripping us up every so often these days. And of course, you take whatever colors you've selected. I chose red and blue. Blue's going to be my color for all the demonstrations. Red's out there just because I felt weird having a single scoring cube out there. You know, it's a minimum of 2 players. In addition to this, the glory tracker, you will also have the 3 basic cards out here. These are in every game. Here's a portal. You can see upper left is the cost. Portals cost 4. Description of any powers. and all 6 faces of one of the portal dice. So when you're buying a portal die, you know exactly what you're getting. When you're buying any of the dice, you know exactly all the faces of a die without having to pick it up and actually look over and lose track of sides and what have you. And that's more or less this. Portals are, it's kind of hard to see sometimes on the card and on the dice, but portals have 1 quiddity, which I'll get to in a moment. These let you draw and reroll 1 additional die, and then these are all draw and roll 2 additional dice. You will also have assistants. Everyone also starts with a few, but there's 2 more out there in case you need them. Assistants are creatures, and as such, not only do they have a cost, but they have glory. When they score at the beginning of your turn, which again we'll get to, that's how many points they'll earn you. Then over here we have the basic quiddity card. Now, you're going to have basic quiddity in your starting bag of dice, but there's no supply out to buy, because it's the most basic thing in the game. Quiddity is currency for the game. It's represented by the little droplet, and you can see 5 sides will give you 1 quiddity, while the one side does give you 2 quiddity. Now, basic quiddity is a cost of 0, so you can pick up more if you want to. Personally, I usually don't. There's a mechanic in the game for getting rid of dice. I like to kind of get rid of those and increase the chances of me pulling my more powerful stuff. Now, in addition to the Glory Tracker, 3 basic cards, you are going to draw 7 creatures and 3 spells. When you're drawing creatures and spells, you don't want to have any doubles. Now, what I mean by that is every version of a creature or spell has a couple of different versions. There are 3 versions of every creature, and there are 4 versions of every spell. I'll get into that more in a moment. Well, actually, I can show up the spell part now. I'll do them all. Here is the Quake Dragon, the strongest guy from the base set. He starts off, or not starts off, but there's 1 version of him, which is the Quake Dragon, just kind of normal. Then there is the strong Quake Dragon, who has slightly better abilities listed here. You know, the stats will never change because they're dice, they can't. But they'll have different powers, different abilities. This is rough. Any creature of level 2 or lower just can't attack you if the Quake Dragon's out. It's pretty powerful. And then there's the mighty version. Every creature has just their straight name version, a strong version, and a mighty version. These are all mixed together in a big deck of creatures and shuffled up. And then you draw out 7. Now, if you draw a card that's a different version of a creature you've already drawn before, you get rid of that and keep drawing until you have 7 unique guys, and you do the same thing for spells. Spells come in 4 flavors. We'll do this with the life magic. There is an incantation, cantrip, spell, and charm. And there are those 4 varieties of each type of magic. Yeah. You do the same thing with spells, drawing until you have no doubles, because you can't double up on the dice, basically. That, and I don't think it would be as much fun if you had multiple versions of the same guy out, even if you had the dice to handle it. So after you draw all of them out, you put their sets of 5 dice by them. You don't have to set it up like this. This is the demo, so I have everything set up neatly next to the cards. Usually we end up just kind of piling them on the cards, especially in games where there's a lot of destroying or where you're getting rid of guys. So that is your basic setup. Then each player, hold on a sec, each player will grab a bag, which will correspond to the color of a guy that you've got, or a little cube that you're using to keep track of your score. And you will also get 4 assistant dice and 8 of the basic quiddity dice. Now, before I get into how the game works and how your turns work, I've got a nice little play mat so I can more easily describe all of this. Now, the first thing you do on your turn is actually scoring your creatures, which we can't go over yet because first turn, nothing to score. So here's our little setup here. One sec. Terribly entertaining for everyone, isn't it? Alright, that's not just good, it's good enough. Cool. Now, this might seem like a little complicated, but it's really not, and you don't need a play mat at all. We've never played with these. We'll bring them out for a new player on their very first game, so they kind of just get an idea. And as long as you can keep everything separated and everyone knows what your dice are doing, it's not too big a deal. Now, you're starting 8, or you're starting 12 dice. And then you put in the bag, and shaken up. And then on your turn, after you've done scoring, you are going to draw 6 dice. These are going to go in your active pool. They are... That's a good demo hand. They are like your hand of cards in a more traditional deck building game. You will take these dice and you will roll them. And you will deal with what you've got. Which isn't too bad, but for the sake of demo, I'm going to make that a creature face. Normally there's only 2 faces you'll see on a lot of dice. There's a creature face, which looks similar to this, and I'll explain in just a moment. And there's some level of quiddity, usually 1 or 2. A lot of the monsters, the creatures tend to have more 2s, which is why I kind of like having that. So I have 1 creature. I have, these are 2s, so that's 4, 5, 6, and I have 7 quiddity to spend. Now first, I think I'm definitely going to summon that creature. How do you summon a creature? You spend quiddity equal to their level. Their level is... We'll use the Quake Dragon die roll. No, we won't. Not at that Zoom level. This number here in the upper left-hand corner on a creature face, that is their level. And that is how much quiddity you have to pay to summon them. So I would pay 1 quiddity. That goes into my spent pile. And this guy comes up into my ready area. Once you have summoned all the creatures you're summoning that round and paid for them, then they attack. Now, how the heck does that work? Well, you're attacking everyone, but all of your opponents, everyone else you're playing with, but you are handling the attacks 1 at a time. And the full attack value is going to go to everyone. That'll make sense in a minute. But here we have a creature face. As I said, this is the level. This is how much quiddity you have to spend to summon them. Then there's the attack and the defense values. And then a single or double burst down here indicates an additional power that you will have to look at the card to figure out. Which might seem like a pain, but really, after a couple of games, you start to get the hang of everything, and halfway through each game, everyone knows what types of guys are out, and it all actually flows pretty well. So that's that. Since it's first round, there's no one else to attack, so that's all that's going to do. My guy would stay out there. He attacks no one, doesn't hit anyone. Then after all that's handled, I still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 quiddity to spend, which is pretty darn good. You know what? Let's get one of these pink-eyed Cyclops. As you can see, he has a cost of 6. And when he scores, he'll get me 2 glory, which we'll cover in a minute. He's also a lock die, which we'll get to after I explain combat and everything else. And those are the additional powers that come with him. So, I'm going to spend my 6 quiddity. Move these all into my spent pile. I'm going to take 1 of these pink Cyclops dice. From up here in the offer, which is called the Wilds, I think? They call it capturing a die from the wilds. You're buying from the store. Then we take the guy we just bought, and he goes into our discard pile. Then I'm out of... Oh, and you can only buy 1 thing per round. You can summon as many creatures as you want up into your ready area, But you can only buy 1 die per round, unless things change that. Like, there's a wizard in the game who changes that a lot. End of your turn, everything gets moved into your discard pile, or your used pile, sorry. And then you're done. Then all your opponents take their turns. Then, it comes back around to your turn. If you have any creatures that have not been defeated in combat, and they're still in your ready area, now you will score them. So, I'm going to zoom out for a second so you can see all of the craziness that's about to happen. No, my angle kind of sucks. So we've got this one little lonely assistant who is the only who made it through, and he's going to score. So we take a look here. 1 glory. Fine, so I take myself, my little blue guy, and put him on the 1 spot on the glory tracker. Nice and easy. Once he's scored, he gets moved to my use pile. And now, for every 1 die that scores, I can cull or remove, trash, get out of my bag, 1 die that I don't want anymore. So 1 guy scored, I'm going to get rid of one of these basic quiddity dice because that's kind of my play strategy. Get rid of the basics so I have more of the more powerful stuff. I'm getting bigger and better stuff more often. I have a friend who plays the complete opposite strategy. He buys all the portals he can as fast as he can and doesn't cull very often with the goal of rolling all of the dice in his bag every single round. Now, after you've taken care of the scoring and the culling, then you kind of start over again, draw your next 6 dice. On the second round, there should only be 6 left, which is the same exact hand as my first one. Yep. And you would roll those. Oh, same kind of thing, almost. And you would roll on those and continue. You would continue summoning, buying, well, summoning, fighting, buying, and then scoring at the beginning of your round, hopefully. Now, let's go over combat real quick. Grab this guy, and I'll grab another... Grab one of these little imps. Let's tighten that up a little. So here are our guys. Actually, let me change that to a face that doesn't have any wacky bursts on it. Alright, that kind of stinks, but it's still not bad. So let's say on my turn, I summoned this pink-eyed Cyclops at level 2, who is 6 attack, 4 defense. And then we've got this little imp here, who's a level 1, 1 attack, 1 defense. These guys are summoned on my turn. They'd be in my ready area. And once I'm done summoning, their attack gets sent out. You combine all of the attacks. So 6 plus 1, 7. So each of my opponents, regardless of what the others do, has to deal with 7 attack coming at them. How do you deal with it? Let's see. Yeah. No, I need something with higher numbers. Should have picked something else. Ah, go with you. So 7 attack is coming at my opponents. Say my first opponent is defending with a Gladiator, and what are you? Oh, and a Warrior of the Quay. Loop. Now we're looking at the bottom numbers. We've got 3 and a 5. So that's 8 defense. And 8 defense is higher than the 7 attack that's coming in, but you don't automatically defend that. You defend using your creatures 1 at a time. And then whatever their defense is subtracted from the attack. Might be a complicated kind of sentence or way to explain it, but it's actually pretty easy. So 7 attack is coming at these guys. You, the defender, get to choose which die defends. So first, I would defend with this. 7 attack is coming at us, defending it with 3. 7 is much higher than 3. Since 7 is higher than 3, this guy is destroyed. That means he gets sent to your used pile. He's not sent back out into the shop or anything, just goes back into your used pile. But he did defend 3 points of attack, so the 7 attack has been reduced to 4 now. 4 attack is now coming at this fellow, who's got 5 defense, And since the attack is less than the defense, nothing happens. Nothing else happens. This guy is fine. He stays out there. He defends the attack successfully. If 5 attack had hit him, then he'd be out. If the attack is equal or greater than the defense of the defending creature, then they're eliminated. But they also reduce the attack by the amount they defended. Now, this does not reduce it. Say a guy couldn't defend and there were like 3 attack left over after all his creatures were defeated. That 3 attack doesn't carry over to the other guys. Each individual opponent has to deal with the full attack coming from your guys. Now, let's change this up a little bit. Wow! This Gladiator has very good defense. I need something slightly weaker. Oh, these guys are weaker. Great. So say that 7 attack was coming at this. Defend with the 2, and there's 5 left. That 5 hits him, he'd be dead. It seems kind of tricky at first, and it was weird to explain it the first couple of times, but it's a lot easier and makes a lot more sense now. And the goal is to summon creatures and have them survive these attacks so that they are still in your ready area at the beginning of your turn. So that they can score you glory and hopefully you can win. Now, let's cover things besides creatures. We've got spells. Spells, let's go with one of these guys. Spells are, predominantly they'll be like, usually there's 3 spell faces to them, which are the fancy icon symbol face, and then a couple of quiddity faces. Some of them will have portals or something of that nature. Now, when you're rolling these dice, these are purchased the same way as creature dice. You know, it's no big deal, nothing different or special about that. When you roll one, you have the choice of immediately, when you roll one of the spell faces, of immediately putting it up in your ready area. That spell is now ready to cast. You can use that spell. Almost every time, there might be cards that change it, but the general rule is, once you've used the spell, it's done. You're done with it. It gets moved to your used pile. Putting it up in your ready area just is like, it's like you've gotten the scroll for the spell, or the tome, or you know what the word to say or something. You're ready to go. It can be cast. You just need to use it. Normally, you can only do this on your turn. You know, on your turn, that one's not a good example. So we had this guy. The Harmony cantrip. It doesn't have anything special, so I can just, bam, I could use this. And with this, I could call extra dice, but it would cost me glory. That's something they introduced in Gladiator. Some of the spells do something really awesome, but you have to pay for it with glory, which is a little tricky. You know, it makes the decisions a lot harder. But anyway, so we've got a spell, and it's up here, and you would cast it on your turn. There are also spells that say reaction. Those you don't really use on your turn. Once they're up here, you can use them in reaction to events. Like, if you're being attacked and you've only got one guy, maybe you get more. That guy will get more defense. Or there's a whole collection of glory magic, which is just making you score more every time your guys score. So there's regular spells. There's the reaction ones there, and then there's attach spells, which you have to have a summon creature out, and then you'll be like, oh, I'm going to attach this spell to him. Wow, and the Oblation cantrip is terrifying. So if this guy survives all of his thing, and all of the other attacks from my opponents, and he comes out okay, then when he scores, you can cull the die with the highest cost in each player's used pile. That's rough. So basically, if this guy, with this spell attached to him, makes it through all the rounds and scores, all of my opponents have to take their highest cost die from their used pile and put it back up here in the wilds, in the shop. When an attached spell When a spell is attached to a creature and this creature scores, is discarded, whatever, the spell goes with it. So once he scores, the spell comes out here. Spells don't just hang around so you can use them every round. They generally have one use until they get thrown into your used pile, and they'll cycle through like everything else. Let's see. And that's the basics of the game. Quarmageddon did not really add new mechanics so much as just a bunch of new guys and a bigger, clearer rulebook. Quest for the Gladiator, however, introduced lock dice. Almost all the dice that came in that set, except for the Gladiator here, I think, have a lock face. Actually, they have two faces. One has a single burst, one has the double burst. Whenever you roll one or more lock faces, you have to select at least one of them and put it up here into your lock area of your ready area, where it will stay until you remove it through various means. The easiest way, of course, is on your turn. You can pay 2 quiddity, and then you can get rid of it. There is, of course, one of the types of dice who generally has a power that keeps you from doing that, so that's lovely. But under most circumstances, you can pay 2 quiddity on your turn, and the lock die will go back to your used pile, or the used pile of the person who put it there, because this is all a possibility when you get into all the various interactions of the cards and powers and such. You can also replace it with another lock die, which you gotta roll it, but isn't too bad. And the thing about lock dice is the single burst side usually seems to be something generally positive. This is the strong pink eye Cyclops. The single burst side for him says that my attacking creatures have my attacking creatures add +2 to the total attack that they're sending out. That's pretty awesome. That's great. Whatever your total attack is, +2. That'll help out tons. But the double burst here for the pink eyes, or the strong pink eye Cyclops, you have to pay 1 additional quiddity each to summon your first 2 creatures each turn. So the first 2 guys you summon each turn will cost 1 extra quiddity or money, currency, what have you, to be summoned. So lock dice are a gamble. Of course, this is the pink eye Cyclops, so you could also just luck out and end up with a fairly decent creature to use. And I love the icon they went with for him. It's that little dour, face of his. And they even reflected it in the art. He does have, that is the shape of his head. And that is just about everything. Though I feel I should take a moment to talk about Rise of the Demons. Rise of the Demons was the very first Quarriors expansion, and I didn't do very well, and expansions from then on have not been of this type. See, we got these dice. Which, in and of themselves, it seemed like a fun little thing. It was a nice, tiny little box. It was fairly affordable. It wasn't that big a deal. What you got were these corrupted quiddity dice, which have, hold on, there we go, which have a 0 on them, and then 4 1s, and then this triple burst, which would make you gain an additional corrupted quiddity. So, the corrupted quiddity is like the basic quiddity, only there's no chance at a 2, you might get a 0, or you might get more of it. So it could potentially pile up and become a lot worse. Well, that didn't really happen. In all the games we played with the corrupted quiddity involved, hardly anyone ever rolled triple bursts. They culled the die as soon as they could. Maybe we were playing wrong and you're not allowed to cull the corrupted quiddity. That would change the game a bit. You also got a creature and a spell. Creature is... wow, the Demon Lord is the only creature I've seen in the game so far that goes up to level 4. 10 attack, 7 defense, and then there's burst powers. And here, give you a better shot of the... there's a good side. The corruption spell. Yeah. It's got like a 1 or 2, mostly the spell phase. Wow, a lot of the spell phase. Now, along with all this, it also came with 1 card for each creature in the original base game. And this was a corrupted version of them. So it was a version of the guy that used the corrupted dice in some way, or is involved in the mechanics somehow. The issue with that is you either kind of played with 7 corrupted creatures, all your creatures were the corrupted ones, or the corrupted stuff never felt like it got used enough. It was a nice idea, and it was kind of fun, and I liked the way it looked out, and the concept seemed really good, but it just wasn't that much fun to really play with. So we just don't use them in the game at all anymore. Though I'm still kind of happy to have them for completion's sake. I mean, this guy we could technically throw into our games, but he'd be a little... I'm pretty sure his powers end up using the corrupted quiddity, so there's that. And then we'd have to throw that. You kind of have to go all or nothing with it. And another thing, all the expansions since then, which have just kind of given us more, which tend to give you like 4 or 5 creatures and 2 new spells, they don't come with any corrupted versions of any of the new creatures. So it's kind of like been, what's the term I'm looking for, deprecated? Like, hey, we came up with a great expansion of this cool mechanic. They just have stopped supporting it, essentially. Doesn't seem to be anything else dealing with this. And there is one more expansion that I do not quite own yet. Something called Quarriors. Yeah, you can tell they love those cues. Quarriors. And the new mechanic in those is the actual eponymous Quarriors. They do... I don't know. I don't know how they work yet. Game store will be open tomorrow, and I will check it out. I'm actually probably going to pick it up then, if not very soon. Even though I just got Gladiator, because Quarriors is just, at the end of the day, just one thing I can say, it's just so much damn fun. It's pretty easy to pick up. By the second or third turn, everyone we've played it with so far has an idea, knows what's going on, and knows enough to actually have a strategy and to play and have fun. When we most recently taught someone the game, at the end of the game, one of the guys was like, oh yeah, I was explaining, oh yeah, you can just, and since we're using all these cards, and there's different versions of everyone, we can have completely new guys next time. And he was just explaining that, the next time we play, we could have the same creatures and have it be a different game. But our new friend, she took it as immediately meaning play another game, and she just jumped on it. She's like, yes, let's play again. The whole rest of their visit up here from Tennessee, we're like, what do we want to play? She would be like, you want to play Quarriors? Come on, let's play some Quarriors. I have friends who aren't out, who don't get to game with us as often. Whenever we suggest a game, they tend to jump on. This is the suggestion they jump on. We could play Quarriors. It's quick, it's fast, it's fun. You can play like 2 or 3 games. So yeah, it's really taken off with myself personally and with the group in general. And look at all those dice! It's so pretty. Hold on a sec. We'll give you more motion sickness. Look at them all. Look at how pretty they all are. It's great. Hold on a sec, real quick. Before we end, I gotta show you, this is probably my favorite die so far. They gave us a poison dart frog in this one. And I love that little guy. There's terrifying eyes, quake dragon, mystic. We've got voodoo dolls, trolls, various types of warriors, goblins, witches. Primordial ooze. His attack and defense are question marks, because depending on what card's out, that will alter his stats. Sometimes it's quiddity will do it. Sometimes it's the number of creatures you have out. There's various different things for him. There's so much to do, so much fun. There's so much variety. You're always having a slightly different game, and you're always having fun. Quarriors is just a fantastic game, and I can't recommend it enough. So that is it for my review. I hope you guys maybe learned something. Hope you guys enjoyed it most of all. Hope I was entertaining and such. And really, I hope you guys go out and pick up the game, at least the basic set, because it's tons of fun. Well, that's all. Thank you for watching. Have a good one.